G'day guys, welcome back to Mile Bay, hope you're all well. In the last episode we worked on the downtown, getting the shorefront of the city just looking super detailed and looking really nice. And man, it's looking really nice. The only thing is that it is this like detailed area amongst areas that are just not finished. All around here is unfinished, this is unfinished, this guy over here is far out, looking very sad. I mean, a lot of these areas I've just zoned and forgotten about, but now we are at the stage where we just need to make these places look a little more detailed. Before we get to places like that, we need to work on a bit of the residential demand as per usual. This is a bit of a problem. The reason I've got to work on it right now before I get over here is if I start laying down any more industry, we're going to have some serious problems. This is already a high demand for residential, and any more industry is probably just going to go abandoned. So residential is the priority at the moment. Now, that's all right, because this area over here, I'm like loving this whole swampy neighborhood. I'm thinking that we redevelop this a little bit and make it a bit more high density, and probably even expanding it a little further out here, you know, getting even towards this sort of area that I haven't even worked on. That's the idea. Now, let's start over on this bridge, because I think that because we have this ferry stop, it's pretty large, and it sort of feels like we need to expand the river edge just a little bit more. So let's evict some people, and we will redevelop this whole area up. I'll leave the game on pause while I do some terraforming around the river, because this is notorious for causing tons of floods. And I'm just gonna make the whole river just a touch larger. And while we're at it, we're gonna upgrade our road as well, because I think that this is gonna be a pretty high density area, at least pockets of it. And this road is a bit of a main road. I don't think it's going to be a large road around this way, but definitely around these parts, I think we can justify it being pretty large. And you know what? Let's do it all the way to this road. And then I think that's a pretty good transition, because we've got this main road, we've got another main road going out this way. So I think that this would probably be, I guess, where the city sort of ends and then the smaller suburbs sort of begin. It would probably make sense if there was a bridge going from here over to this side of the river. I say that because we've got some fairly main roads heading towards this way, and I do plan to have some sort of airport, like potentially out this way. I don't know, that's sort of where I'm thinking at this stage. So, a road. I mean, we could just keep it a small road for now, but I think that's going to make a bit of sense to get traffic over there. Just made some pretty big changes to the size of the river. Just tried to make it look a little bit more natural. If we're going to make this nice and wide, then these areas also have to be pretty wide too. I think that's a bit better of a size, and I'm a little nervous to press play, so I might get ready to just reset the water level to sea level. I don't really like doing that just because it kind of changes some things that I don't want to change, and are we going to be okay? Are we going to lose some stuff? I just don't want to lose any of my downtown, you know? I just built all that. It's looking alright. It's looking okay. Oh boy, this is always a very scary thing. Working with any water. And we're kind of complaining about power. Oh boy, alright. I believe that's because I have cut off all power. So let's just connect that up before we cause any serious problems. I think we're alright, guys. I think we're okay. So, looking at our rivers now, I still think we could make them a little bit wider. I mean, if we've got such a wide area around here, I mean, this should probably match very similar widths to that one. So, let's continue widening and see where we end up. A lot of the flooding has finished now, and the size of the river has changed quite a lot. I will continue to tweak it, especially up around these areas where it's quite thin, but I do like the size of it now, and I do like the way that it flows. It's a subtle change, but I think you'll be surprised at how much it actually has changed. Something that I did have to do was, because we have changed just slightly the path of the river, I've shuffled this bridge back a bit, so we do need to work on how that transition works. And there are just some like low areas that are just going to be prone to flooding, so I do need to fix them up just a smidge. But you know, we're going to get into a bit of a time lapse in just a second, because there's a fair amount of work that I want to chew through today. One thing that I will do though in this live play is just this bridge, because I know the exact bridge that I would like to use for this. I'm going to get rid of you right now, and I'm going to swap you for something that just looks much better. This is the bridge that I want. If I put him there, this is honestly the coolest bridge ever. I can't wait to see this thing move. If you don't know what I'm talking about, these bridges, this one, and this one, will all move up and down. They will draw. I am using a mod that allows them to do that. I just need some boats going through my rivers, but we'll do that at another stage. But what we will do now is detail this thing up. So I will add some custom pillars in and just make this whole area look a lot better so it fits in. And you know what? Let's get into it. Got a bit of work to do. So let's get into the time lapse. All right, so just ignore everything that I was talking about to do with industry in this episode. We plan a little bit of industry and we work on the other side of a river, just thinking about where we're going to be putting that down when we get to it. But we do not get to it in this episode because we still have just huge demand for residential. And even when I go through and start deleting some of the industry to make room to expand it out, you'll notice that we just need to work on a lot more of the population before we even work on anything job related. And I think this is going to be a real struggle for a while, but I do have some ideas of how we can tackle it, and I'll leave that for the live play at the end. But we do some really fun things in this time lapse, particularly around the end of this time lapse. I placed down probably one of my favorite parts, maybe so far within the series. I just really love this sort of work that I do, and yeah, I'm just gonna wait for it. It'll be towards the end of the episode. Time lapse, I should say. But to kick things off, we are working on the waterways around here, around the bridge. This bridge, I love it so much, and I really can't wait to see barges and ferries going through the waterways. I am subscribed to a mod called, I believe it's just called Barges. That mod pretty much allows you to transfer cargo from one wharf to another, which is similar to how cargo works within a train line. So that's a pretty exciting mod that I'm really excited to get into, because we actually have some really great waterways, and freight, I mean, using those waterways, I think is going to be like a really fun way of getting cargo around the city, especially getting it off the roads, because we don't have a huge amount of road infrastructure. I mean, we've got some big roads and, you know, I guess roads kind of going everywhere, getting to the right places, but we don't actually have any highways or any of that sort of infrastructure at the moment. Plus, you know, trying to build things that are similar to New Orleans. There's barges throughout all these waterways, and that's sort of another reason why I want to build something based on New Orleans, is just the way that the barges work within the waterways. I think is really interesting, and I think creates a whole new layer of city planning, because not only do you have train lines and you know, road networks to get freight from one place to another, but you know, how we're going to create, you know, canals between these different waterways, and how am I going to build these hubs, these industrial hubs, and make it so that industry can get from one place to another, or cargo from one place to another. It's gonna be super fun. I can't wait to get to it. The only problem is that I don't even have enough people within the city to even unlock barges within the milestones. I think that's comes after 38,000 residents or something like that. We're ages away. We're at 12,000. So yeah, we really need to work on the residential demand. So we work on it a bit on this episode, but I'm going to talk a bit more about that during the live play. Anyway, we're talking about stuff that I'm not even doing. We are still planning out some of the road networks for this new suburb that we're creating. We have Driftwood, which sits right on the peninsula of this, between this river. Is that still a peninsula? Probably not. I don't know. I'm going to stick with it. Let me know if that's not the right term. But yeah, there is Driftwood. I will be working around Driftwood very shortly to just detail it up a little bit more. But for this suburb, I wanted it to be a bit different to the other suburbs we have within St. Marie. I am looking at this area around New Orleans. I don't really know how to describe it. I guess it's closer to the swampland, pretty far out of the city, just a bit of a sprawling neighborhood. But I really love how it branches off this avenue that, I think it's quite an interesting area. Something that I'm noticing is just not a lot of massive trees around, not a lot of just trees in general, which is quite different to St. Marie. I mean, St. Marie is very bushy. There's trees, like big trees within the city, and I thought, let's make it feel a little bit different out this way. And even the house type that I'm choosing, I've decided to go a bit more vanilla, choosing more modern houses and just using the building themes mod to, I guess, tailor the types of houses that I want to grow around. Because there's some houses that I want, some houses that I don't. But I'm pretty happy that they're a bit of a mix. And, sometimes you just got to embrace the vanilla houses in all their glory, or lack of glory, because some of them are a little bit ugly. But I don't know, sometimes they're bright rooftops and, such a huge amount of variety in types of houses that will grow around here, I think make for an interesting area. Also, just putting in a bit of commercial, had a bit of commercial demand, and really just making that place feel a bit more like a neighborhood. I then wanted to shift my attention to just finish off this power line that we started a little while ago, and I sort of just dragged it out to this spot and thought I'd deal with this a little later on. Well, now is a little later on, and now we're dealing with it. I figured we should probably work on this because otherwise it's just going to be stuck at this hillside for a while. But I'm a little bit obsessed with power lines. I think they're really interesting, the way that they carve their path through a city and how neighborhoods and city infrastructure have to, well, I guess it has to navigate around city infrastructure already, and houses and commercial areas, and just that whole idea I think is really cool. And obviously in real life they're not very interesting and they're quite ugly, but I think in terms of city planning, I think it's and actually making it work within the city, I think it's really fun. And it's also something that I usually avoid. Like, I've always tried to avoid building power lines, and in quite a lot of my other cities I wouldn't even have power. I might just like place a couple of hidden power stations within the city and just say like, oh, everything's connected by power. But with this one, because we actually have a massive power station out in the farmland, I really wanted to show that it is connected to the city this way. This power, this massive power line is going towards the industrial hub, crosses the river, which goes right up against the bridge, which I think is another interesting part of the city. Goes past a very quickly created cemetery. I'm getting a little bit over creating these cemeteries, but it seems to be the best way to create them. They're very under-detailed and pretty underwhelming, but they do serve a pretty good purpose when you do end up creating them. And then I just wanted to make the ground underneath all this power line just pretty roughed up, a bit dry, and definitely not manicured, and no big trees, of course. And then just thinking about what sort of places are built around these power lines, Obviously, there would have been a time when these power lines were built in this area, and they probably would have had to demolish a couple of a bit of a path or figured out the best route for them. And then they would have started rebuilding around it. What's going to fit around here? It's going to be the commercials. I think this cemetery probably works really well in a place like this, just to fill that gap. Some industrial, just vacant lots and just stuff like that. I'm also just being a bit mindful of not filling every inch with like residential or suburbs, because, I do have a very big demand for residential, and particularly because I am also creating industry and commercial at the same time, and even placing cemeteries and schools creates jobs. And it's kind of like this thing, you build a suburb and then you go like, okay, now just place a couple of bits of commercial and, some services. And then that demand goes back up again. So I'm really stuck with how much demand I have and, trying to constantly fulfill it. And I know it's kind of like part of the game to always have the demand, and I'm probably putting a little bit too much focus on it, but I also think that it is causing me to not make as much money as I could be because my industry is just quite vacant. There's a lot of jobs wanted. My industrial areas just aren't functioning quite as much as they could be because they just don't have as many people working. Don't have as many workers there. So it's a real struggle. And I think most people, and I guess the base game, just kind of wants you to build a giant city. They encourage you to just, you need the demand, so wipe out a whole area of your city and make high rises and just allow it to grow as big as you want. Whereas I'm trying to be a bit more careful of that. I don't really want many more sky rises within the city of St. Marie. I think it's already quite tall. So yeah, just trying to find that balance, and I think it's a bit tricky within this game. And of course, there are mods that change that balance, but I'm trying to play similar to how the game works. I know we've got mods enabled and all that sort of stuff, but I am happy with the level of challenge, and I think we can make it work. It's just a matter of figuring out how we're going to make it work. Alright, we've just done some work within Driftwood. I've created a big parkland all the way pretty much around the waterway, and within the main town of Driftwood, we've got some commercial, got some sky rises, and we've even got a ferry terminal that we will work on, later on. It's just been placed there as a bit of a placeholder. But we are working now on an area that it was a lot of fun, because this is the area that I think was probably one of the most enjoyable and a real moments for me when I came to building. So I'm building another bridge. I was like, okay, we need to make a bridge here, and I'll place another one of these ones because they are super fun, and I think it makes sense to have a couple of them within the city. The problem I was having though was it felt like the angle wasn't quite right. It needed to be slightly on a better angle to allow for boats to go underneath it. And then I was also looking at it and thinking, there's too many bridges around here. I don't think they really need this many bridges in this area. Sort of feels a bit like overkill. So I'm kind of just like considering this area and how necessary is having this bridge here, and whether or not we need to maybe change a bit of the road layout. So what I decided was, let's upgrade the roads, but not just upgrade the roads, make it wider. Let's change its path a bit. So what we're doing is, that bridge now is decommissioned. We've demolished that bridge. It's no longer in use. It is too old and no longer really needs to be in an area like that. The city has expanded. We are putting in infrastructure for a future airport. I know it's a little early, but I am, planning on changing this area a little bit. We're going to be creeping a bit further into the swampland too. So I thought, all right, let's put in just a touch of infrastructure for, a bit of suburbs and a bit of infrastructure for that future airport, when we finally get to it. And what I decided was to have this bridge go over this part of the river, and we'll make it a bit higher up so that boats will be able to pass underneath it. We did need some bridges like this. New Orleans has a bunch of them. It's not all drawbridges. Actually, in fact, there's only a couple of drawbridges within New Orleans, but these bridges are quite useful to get cargo in and out of the city via these ships. And I basically thought that this would be a really interesting way of just changing the road layout and just figuring out a better route for traffic to flow. At the moment, it looks like this road is sort of just in the middle of nowhere, and it kind of is at this point, but I would like to build a bit further into this area. And of course, when we work on this industrial zone and some of the suburbs that live out this way, and even the airport when it's out this way, then that road is going to make a lot more sense. And I sort of imagine that this road has been here for a while, and they've only just upgraded it so that it does hold slightly more traffic. I think that the highway might even creep out this direction too. I think there's a bit of infrastructure and a bit of need for the highway to target an area like this. Whereas the other road that we worked on before, the avenue and then the bridge that goes towards the center of St. Marie, that very much just takes traffic in a different direction, whereas out this way, it's going to target some of the larger areas or the places that are going to have quite a lot of traffic and quite a lot of people heading in that direction, airport included. And I think demolishing this bridge would have made a lot of sense because you wouldn't really need traffic going directly into the city anymore because the city has expanded, so traffic needs to sort of spread out a little bit further, needs to target some other areas. And I would imagine that it would be quite congested now with more cars on the roads. This whole area just doesn't have the infrastructure to hold that amount of traffic, whereas this main road that we have now established out this way is more capable of holding larger amounts of traffic. And when we build that highway, I think that'll make a lot more sense. But that's pretty much it for the time lapse. We're going to jump into a live play. We'll talk a bit more about some of these decisions and maybe even build another suburb. I don't know. We'll get into it. I mean, you can just see the difference in the types of neighborhoods you have within St. Marie, and I feel like this area is so different to anywhere else in the city. So I'm really liking that just from a distance. But it has filled out the city really quite nicely and hit that residential demand, which is something else that we needed. But, I mean, as you can see, we've still got that demand, and it's causing this issue where we don't really need any industry at this stage. And that's a bit of a problem because that's what I want to put over here. I don't really want to zone out anything else but industry. What I have in mind is to have two different neighborhoods like this, and they're going to be mostly residential. And then we'll have our industrial zone right there. And then I'm thinking the airport will sit somewhere around here. There we go. So these two neighborhoods are going to be situated between a pretty big industrial hub and the airport. So not the greatest of neighborhoods. I'm going to zone them out, and I might even change up a bit of the road layout. In fact, let's drag out a couple more roads and think about the layout of this little neighborhood. I think that's pretty much going to be the road layout around here. Just keep in mind that I'm also thinking about where that highway is going to go, because I actually think that this is going to be turned into a highway at some stage, making this probably just one of the lanes, and then we'll drag another one around as well. Potentially some sort of interchange here, like thinking about the best places for interchanges and how to get people to the airport. I mean, that's all down the track, but you know, that's just sort of my idea as well. Just thinking about how they're going to impact this road layout. You know what? Let's just make it one neighborhood. And I actually don't mind the name Vermont. Let's keep it at that. I'm going to give Vermont a district theme. Community is the one that I want, I'm pretty sure. And look, I'm just going to zone it. We're pretty desperate for houses at this stage, and I'm just gonna zone this bad boy up. Oh, would you look at that? We just hit big city. How good is that? Well, I mean, I think that's a pretty good way to end an episode. Oh look, we're not completely finished. We've got a few more things to do. A little neighborhood of Vermont has grown quite a lot, and I'm just going to add just the slightest of changes to it. We have a pretty swampy area down here. I think we should make it just mostly grass, at least around the houses. And you know, I don't really mind the lack of trees in a neighborhood like this, but I think I'm going to add just a few just scattered around. I know I said nothing too big, but I've got a couple of big figs in there, and then just some smaller ones. But really, I kind of like how sparse the houses are between each other. I don't know, kind of interesting. And then we've just got to kind of play the waiting game, because we really need that population to increase just a bit more so that we can actually start getting a little bit of the industrial zones a bit better. While we're waiting for more of Vermont to grow, let's have a little fly around to check out some of the places we built. So of course, a bit of the road layout has changed. We now have this bigger bridge that is, like I said, going to become some of the highway. In fact, let's change just a little bit of it now, because I think this 4-lane highway doesn't really need to be 4 lanes at the moment. So I might just make it 2 lanes and we'll make it into a highway. But yes, that highway stretches across here. We'll head towards the airport at some stage. But this guy I mean, this is the one that I really enjoyed the change because I absolutely love doing things like this. And I also love the fact that it was serving a purpose before. It was connected up. It was connected all the way through along here, but it's no longer in use. We are no longer using that bridge and we're diverting traffic along this way instead. People, I guess, who wants to get it all the way out to Seaton or out towards Morgan can take this route, or they can obviously go through the city via this road. So, and yeah, I mean, we do connect up along this way. I mean, probably not getting a huge amount of traffic. We're not really getting a huge amount of traffic between these two places. And then when we do have the airport, industry, other areas around here, then we can justify putting in that highway. But I just love that this is just a bridge that is just not in service anymore. And I see so much of this in real life, and I always love seeing it, particularly in Google Earth. I think it just is one of those things that you kind of see at bridges that used to connect, or roads that you kind of think, I feel like that used to connect up. You do a bit of research, see that it did. I don't know, kind of fun. And you know, this neighborhood is very bustling. There are just a lot of people driving around and I guess visiting the shops that sit around here, these neighborhood shops. And it is one of the more main roads that go into St. Marie, so it is getting quite a bit of traffic. We have some more detailed areas. When I say detailed, I mean just vacant parking lots and power lines just stretching through the neighborhood. And this, I mean, it's pretty average, but just another cemetery. I struggled for Driftwood because I didn't really want to lose the essence of Driftwood. I kind of wanted to keep it pretty similar to how it was before, but we did need a bit of high density. And then in terms of the next episode, so, I mean, this is what I'm thinking at the moment. We're going to struggle with residents for a while, and we're just 15,000 is still low numbers. There's so much that I still can't build. I can build most of the services. I mean, that's not really any sort of problem there. But in terms of public transport, there's just a few things that are still locked for me, and hitting 38,000 just feels like an eternity away. I don't see myself hitting that anytime soon at the rate that we're going. And then I've been talking about an airport for ages, but 55,000, oh man, how am I going to hit that? I have no idea how I'm going to hit that. So I don't know. I mean, maybe at some point I just go, stuff it, let's just unlock everything and finish our city up, or we just keep on plowing our way through. I've got just one trick that I think might help us out quite a bit. Let's just put a pin in St. Marie for a little while, maybe even 1 to 2 episodes. 1 episode at least, and we're going to go to our second city. This guy. I mean, it's not a city yet, but this will be a city in the next episode. I'm going to see how long it takes me to build an entire city, an entire village or town or whatever, an entire area with high population. I want to try and build this guy up pretty quickly, and I've got a bit of an idea of how I'm going to do it and the style I'm going to do it in, based on your suggestions. So if you do have any more, let me know, because I'll be reading them for the next episode, get them coming in. But guys, that is it for today's episode. Thank you all so much for watching. It's very much appreciated. Big old fun episode, and I'm looking forward to working on this new city that we've just promised. Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Want to give a special shout out to some of the people supporting the channel on Patreon. Pywo1904, KC3, Sven No, Anto, Ruffkins, and Hobie. Thank you guys so much for your support, and I'll catch you in the next one. Catch you later.